Hello, welcome to Don't Bury the Lead. We recap WWE Smackdown every Friday night after the bell. Going a little unique today, going on Saturday afternoon. Nonetheless, still recapping Smackdown. I'm joined by Dom Scarcella. Dom, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
I enjoyed WrestleMania, and I was interested to see what would happen on the first SmackDown after the big show. And I think we got a pretty good show here. But hey, enough of the small talk, John. It's a Saturday, but we still want to get right to things. So don't bury the lead, John. What is our top story coming out of this post WrestleMania 39 SmackDown?
I'll tell you what, pretty good SmackDown top to bottom. And we had the main event with Jey Uso and Sami Zayn. The lead, I'd have to say, is Matt Riddle arriving to save Sami Zayn in a big schmozz at the end. Matt Riddle siding with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens' team. So I'd have to go ahead and say that's the lead. Matt Riddle, we haven't seen him on SmackDown. We haven't seen him really. I haven't seen much of him at all in our 6, 7, 8 months here watching SmackDown. So, Dom, what did you think about this last main event segment?
The way that WrestleMania ended with Roman Reigns retaining against Cody Rhodes, basically because the Bloodline had an extra man.
Yeah.
You know, it was Roman versus Cody. It was Sammy and Kevin Owens versus the Usos. But then there was Solo Sikoa. And we'll say what happened in the match. Sami Zayn and Jey Uso have a pretty good match here to close SmackDown. And there was an angle building to it that we can get to later. But Jey winds up winning based on some interference from Solo Sikoa.
Mm-hmm.
Samoan Spike, and then Jey super kicks Sammy and gets the pin that way. And then post-match, there's a beatdown, like you were saying. And then Matt Riddle comes out, and I thought this was a really creative use of something that could have been really bad. To fill people in, because I do remember this from watching clips months and months ago. Matt Riddle was supposed to go on leave for a while. It was rumored that it was because of WWE wellness policy.
Rehab.
Yeah, rehab, and he was a baby face at the time, and I think he may have been one of the first people, if not the first people, to get that Solo Sikoa charge into the corner while the chair's around his neck. So they made this thing that Solo Sikoa took out Matt Riddle. He was carted off on a stretcher in a neck brace from that episode. I think it was Raw. We didn't see him on SmackDown for that. And so like that could have been like, hey man, we need you off TV for a while, so we're just gonna like bury you here. But at the same time, it turns into, hey Matt, if you get yourself back together and can return and perform, we might have a ready-made angle for you. You know, and I thought it was a really creative way to use Matt Riddle's return from whatever problems he was having. That he's back on the roster now, and now he's the guy who comes out in a sense to even up the odds, even up the sides to help Sammy. So really creative thing there by WWE. You know, you're always wondering, is the Bloodline always going to have that +1 advantage or not? And so you're thinking, okay, who's it going to be who comes out and does that? On Raw, they teased it might be Brock Lesnar, but of course that turned into a big turn on Cody Rhodes. Maybe now it's going to be Matt Riddle. I mean, I don't unless they have a turn in mind for Matt Riddle, but you know, this was pretty cool to see them have another chapter in this bloodline angle. You know,
Yeah.
they're doing such a good job of taking a long-term angle and keeping it fresh.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's not like they just dropped the bloodline thing and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens went into it's like they're still kind of drilling in and getting as much out of the bloodline as they can with
Yep.
Sami Zayn and him talking to Jey Uso before the
Right?
match. And you know, of course the match ends the same way that the main event of WrestleMania ended, which is a good callback where
Yeah, right.
Solo Sikoa interfered and Jay's able to get the pin on Sami Zayn. I think it was a good callback to what happened on WrestleMania. And then in addition to that, seeing them continue the storyline is very encouraging, because I thought they might just drop it and move on, but no, Sammy's still going to be like floating around the bloodline, trying to take them down. And Kevin Owens is like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is over, So
it is fun though, and I think that's one of the aspects of Roman keeping the belt at WrestleMania 39 is that now it shows us maybe some tension within the bloodline, and they teased that again with Paul Heyman earlier in the night. Jay shows up, he finds Solo and Paul Heyman, and he asks, "Hey, anybody seen my brother?" And Paul reveals that, "Oh no, Roman told Jimmy to stay home and watch on TV tonight. You're out there to take care of Sami Zayn on your own. And if you can't take care of the problem, then Solo will take care of the problem." Hinting that maybe it's Solo who's going to take care of Jay if Jay can't take care of Sami. So they're doing a neat job of again, like, keeping the bloodline angle fresh. They're teasing loyalties in the bloodline. And in fact, that's what Sammy's been trying to do for a while. Trying to get Jay especially, hey, you don't have to go down with the ship. So they've been teasing in so many angles that there may be friction in the bloodline, especially now that they lost one set of belts. What's going to happen now? It'll be really interesting to see the first time that Roman is back on TV with his belts, and the Usos do not have their belts.
Yeah, for sure. How is that going to go? Yeah, so still continuing the thing where, like, Roman's a little disappointed. We sent Jimmy home. I think they did it on Raw too, and I love this, like, continuous, almost inside joke where, like, go to the back or go to the bus. We got shrimp. We got steak. Like, whenever the bloodline, whenever they send somebody away, they always, like, tempt them. Like, listen, you got caviar there, you got steak, you got shrimp, you got all the good stuff. Go to the
bus is well catered.
The bus is well catered. Go to the bus.
I don't remember any bus being like Roman's bus.
Right. I don't think there is a bus like that. But all in all, pretty cool, fun little segment at the end. You kind of knew when I saw the main event, I was like, oh man, like, if they just did this match as the main event of SmackDown, I'm like, whoa, this is too big. Like, these are between Sami Zayn and Jey Uso. I gotta say, they're the hottest guys in the WWE right now, and they could be main eventers. If either of them had the belt, you'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. So
how about Sami Zayn really growing into the non-comedy jobber character? Like, he was so good as the comedy jobber, so good as, the guy trying to kiss up to Roman Reigns, being the corporate yes man. But he's really, and he was so over at that, and the crowd loved him. But I think the crowd, it seems, likes him even more as the confident Sami who stands straight and tall, even when he has to go out there by himself. He's not constantly looking around for other people's approval. And he gets in the ring, and he wrestles a pretty good match. Like, Sami Zayn looks like a main eventer when he gets in the ring now. And the way he performs. I mean, the Exploder Suplex is fantastic. The Blue Thunder Bomb is fantastic. And for a guy who's, by pro wrestler standards, skinny and lanky, he's got some strength behind him.
Yeah.
I mean, these Exploder Suplexes and Blue Thunder Bombs, I mean, he pulls them off fairly well on people. And he's not the biggest guy out there. But he looks like he belongs in a wrestling ring. So to your point about, you could see either one of these guys as a main eventer, perhaps with a world title. Yeah, and who would have thought that about Sami when he was a comedy jobber?
Right. I mean, unbelievable.
He joins that conversation now. Like, he's at that level. And he doesn't seem out of place in a match like this, does he?
No, and it doesn't feel like the heat's going anywhere either. It's not like it was like, oh, we got some heat from the breakup, and then suddenly it goes flat after a week or two and people get bored with it. Like, he's still way over. So kudos to him. Anything about the match stick out to you?
Um, I like when Solo comes out as they're nearing the first commercial break of the match, oh, the only commercial break in the match. Um, he walks out solo. He didn't walk out with Jay for the entrance, and so they were still teasing like whose side is Solo on. And then later, when it turns out that Solo helps Jay win the match, um, Solo jumps in the ring and starts beating the heck out of Sammy, and he picks him up again and goes for another Samoan spike, and Jay stops him. And you're wondering, okay, is Jay having second thoughts here? Because Jay hadn't participated in this post-match beatdown. And then he does. He super kicks Sammy while Sammy is basically dropped to his knees there. Which was another cool little wrinkle there. They're doing such a good job of keeping the little suspense that they can during the matches, during post-match segments. As far as any maybe move sets that I liked, top turnbuckle where Sammy does an exploder superplex.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. That was a good spot. Sammy tries another top turnbuckle move later on, but Jay catches him with a super kick. So there was a little bit of that. These guys know each other pretty well at this point, and they're able to counter each other's moves. Sammy gets the blue thunder bomb for a 2.5 count, but then they're fighting up on the top rope again, and this is right before the closing sequence. Jay winds up enzigurying Sammy as Sammy climbs the ropes. That's that side kick to the head.
Mm-hmm.
So Sammy's way up there. And Jay, I mean, that's an enziguri to a guy who's standing at the same level that you are is one thing. But to enziguri a guy who's climbing the turnbuckles. Main event Jey Uso, that's an impressive kick.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Like, these guys are such fantastic athletes. And maybe it's sometimes easy to forget because they've been such great characters. Jay and Sammy have been perhaps the elite level characters we've seen in our 6.5 months now. But you know, they get in a match like this and you remember, and they get in their WrestleMania match and you remember, oh yeah, these guys are some of the best wrestlers in the company too.
Yeah, for sure. And it was one of these things where with Sami Zayn, he was always kind of like the workhorse that had. I was always like, his personality's okay. He's just like a guy. But he could always work. And now that he's progressed to this point, and they've gotten that out of him, so he is kind of like the promo storyline guy. And then he gets in the ring, and it's like, oh yeah, he can still really bring it.
Mm-hmm. Good to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Good to see. That's about all I have for this match. It was a fun way to close the post WrestleMania Smackdown. It showed us that they still have some ideas going forward for the Bloodline, which is always good. You know, you don't want to see them get to the point where the Bloodline angle is getting stale and it's just hanging on because they don't know how to get out of it. Yeah. I brought that up months ago, that, you know, comparing it to the NWO. The NWO was so hot, and it was a fantastic angle until it gradually wasn't, and then it was, oh, they don't know how to get out of it.
When I'm glad that they was on the NWO, all these jobbers that they had kind of laying around, or mid-card guys, and then they'd be in the NWO, and then they split, and there's 2 NWOs, and like then there's the LWO, the whole thing, you know.
Yeah, which we may get to in this SmackDown recap here, but yeah, I'm glad to see that they still have ideas for the Bloodline, and you know, we're getting some new wrinkles. This it's fun when what you're watching is still interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So, you know, we talked about the lead here. What do you think the next segment should be? What are we? Which match should we focus on?
Since you mentioned the LWO, we could go right to there. This was the other match from the 9 o'clock hour. So on the match card, it directly preceded this one. Santos Escobar and Rey Mysterio with Legado del Fantasma, all wearing their Latino World Order shirts that Rey had given them a week ago as he was entering the Hall of Fame. They did a neat little segment on that for the pre-WrestleMania SmackDown, which
This
was
was
obviously light on wrestling.
now. I watched I watched some shoddy YouTube clip that's like 15 minutes long that had all the SmackDown stuff in here. Was this where Triple H came out? Did he start the whole segment where Triple H came out and talked about the draft and then
Triple H begins the 9 o'clock hour as he did on Raw to announce not only the draft, but he had to announce, especially on Raw this week, he had to address something about the merger of WWE.
okay.
So he's coming out there. He's coming out there to do business, but he's also coming out there to do business.
Yes.
And so he begins kind of the 9 o'clock hour doing that. He talks about WrestleMania 39, how great it was, all the records they set. Talks about the upcoming WWE draft. So basically, trying to assure people that the product is strong, even with the corporate stuff going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and my
He
notes
introduces Rhea Ripley.
yeah, my notes for Triple H, I said Triple H talks about how great WWE is.
There he goes.
He's out there.
He's a good spokesman.
We did the most views, a billion social media views, and
Yep.
we had all this. We're great. It's like, okay, this is Triple H putting himself over, putting the company over, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So really, really going out there and hamming it up about the company. And then eventually, yeah, he introduces Rhea Ripley, which brings us to the entire
Judgment Day all comes out with her.
yeah, the Judgment Day comes out, and do you want to talk?
They get some good ring time. Now we're slowly getting into this match because I think it's, as you brought it up. Yeah, let's talk about what introduced it. I have a good question for you here because we've been wondering about Rhea Ripley and Judgment Day, and does she fit anymore? Triple H does not introduce Judgment Day. He talks about the great talent, including the WWE Smackdown champ, Rhea Ripley, and the crowd cheers.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes out with Judgment Day. So what an interesting wrinkle there that Triple H is, maybe they're testing the waters to see if Rhea can get over as a babyface. Because they just announced her. And before the crowd knows that it's going to be all of Judgment Day in the ring cutting heel promos, they cheer for Rhea.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you think about that strategy of them continuing to test the waters about, is there an organic baby face in this heel faction? And then what do we do about that?
It's a good problem to have. Because if you think about it, you could do a lot of different things, and it adds a level of intrigue. So she's over as a face, and then like adversely, her partner and sidekick is getting nuclear heel heat in Dominic. So
did you get to see much of this segment? Because it was gold.
Yeah.
At points, like Rhea getting cheers and then trying to stay heelish, like yelling at the crowd that they should rise to cheer her. You know, it's not quite Roman Reigns acknowledge me, but it was close. Rise, and like they didn't stand up. She goes, I said rise. So she's trying to maintain that heel heat, even as she's, because she's in the ring with a bunch of heels. And then Finn Balor cuts his heel promo, obviously, and props to Finn Balor. A few weeks ago, I think it was 3 weeks before WrestleMania, he had a grade 2 tear of his left calf. He was supposed to be out 6-7 weeks. Mm-hmm. He wrestled that Hell in a Cell match 3 weeks later and got busted wide open and needed like staples in his head to close that wound from the ladder that happened. And so some legitimate strongman, tough guy, really working as an athlete. Props to Finn Balor for just being an athlete, being a real athlete. But he's cutting a heel promo, obviously, and then here comes Dominic, and Dominic is getting crazy heat. Like you're right. Like it is wonderful to see that they're able to do such a great WrestleMania with such great matches and some maybe closures to some storyline chapters, but that stuff is continuing through WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Like WrestleMania did not kill Sammy and KO in the bloodline, and it did not kill Dominic Mysterio's insane heat.
Dom couldn't even say anything. Dominic Mysterio couldn't say anything without the crowd trying to yell at him.
Yeah.
It was like, whoa, he is way over. And this is, I thought it was because the Montreal crowd was so crazy and it might have been something unique and he was getting crazy heat there. But this has been consistently on SmackDown. Wherever they go in the country, they're in Portland for this show. And in Portland, people were just going nuts.
And it's heel heat. It's not go home heat.
No. It was like, it's like, we're not going to let you talk because we hate you so much. Like, It was like, yeah, he's getting that like really good heel heat. And it's not like the tweener stuff where you kind of like, you do kind of like him, but you like him. So you want to just bury him. And he's so chicken shit, you know, he's really nailing chicken shit heel. Down.
Is he one of the first people, or probably not the first? Pro wrestling's old. He's one of the few people, it seems to me. I don't know if this seems to you, who has been able to, while keeping the same character, transition from go home heat to genuinely good heel heat.
Unbelievable. We trashed him one of the first couple episodes. We were like, and we weren't even trashing people. We were being very open minded. We're like, this guy's not that good. And then the NASCAR thing, we're like, this is like, ugh.
NASCAR is fake.
That's a throwback. It is fake. Yeah, he did like a terrible segment with this NASCAR advert, and you're just like, man, they really got to keep this guy on the roster. And then suddenly, it just got some momentum when they matched him and Mommy up, and it's been hilarious and not cringe comedy, like really good comedy stuff. And yeah, good for Dom. I'd have to say too, maybe we could pivot now. So
you want to talk match at all? It was a decent match.
Yeah.
Santos Escobar and Rey Mysterio versus
the LWO gets introduced after that.
After Santos and Rey come down, it's Cruz and Joaquin, and Zelina Vega is there as well, and they're sporting their LWO shirts versus Damian Priest and Dominic Mysterio with Judgment Day remaining at ringside. Anything from this match? Eventually, Damian Priest chokeslams Santos Escobar for the pin. So they clean up this. They clean up this tag match 6 days after WrestleMania, 5-6 days after WrestleMania, without having either of the Mysterios involved in the pinning combination.
Yeah. I think two things I want to point out about this.
Yes, go ahead.
One, so Rey Mysterio went to the WWE Hall of Fame a week ago, and then he wrestled a really good match against Dominic on WrestleMania, and then tonight on SmackDown, he was the workhorse in this tag match. I'm like,
he may have wrestled on Raw.
He's old.
He went into the Hall of Fame. He's 50 years old. He's never been busier.
Yeah, right. He went into the Hall of Fame, and you figured, okay, he's retiring. He's going in the Hall of Fame. Like, no, he's just going in the Hall of Fame, but he's all over. He's working more than he has in years, you know?
NASCAR is fake. Rey Mysterio is real.
Yes. Rey Mysterio, man. So he goes out and he's the workhorse of the tag match, which he doesn't have to do. Usually you could plug one of the other guys in and he can stand. He could do like when we did the John Cena tag match where he stood there and did nothing and got a hot tag, did a slam, and then they left. He could do that and it would work. But no, he's in there. He's the workhorse of that tag. And the second thing I wanted to point out, I think we saw this tonight, which was great. It seems like these guys all wrestle that lucha style, and they're all familiar with each other, like they've wrestled in the past or something, or they've been trained by the same people. So this match was good as a result of the fact that we got that unique style, right? Like, okay, we get the lucha match tonight, and that really helped this match gel.
Yeah, the luchador wrestler wasn't the odd person out in
Yeah.
this match. Like even if they haven't worked together that often, if they know the style and the move sets, then when they call something, the other guy knows what that is,
Mm-hmm.
knows what to expect, knows what to do. It's not Rey Mysterio trying to Hurricane Rana carrying Cross off the second turnbuckle, and Cross not really knowing how to work with a smaller wrestler on that kind of move, and it looking a little bit awkward. Not that it's carrying Cross's fault. How many lucha libre matches has he worked in his career, or would he be expected to work for a man of that size? But
It
you're
felt
right. If everybody knows the style, then you get a pretty fluid, coherent match in the ring. Yeah.
so. Um,
Did you love the double dives going to the first commercial break?
my favorite.
Not one dive, but two dives to opposite sides of the ring. Is that like a double negative? Do they cancel each other out like in grammar? It's like, your English teacher told you don't use a double negative because that turns into a positive. Like, I didn't do nothing. Oh, so you did do something? Like, so if we get double dives, does that make it awesome?
Two negatives make a positive.
Yes.
I have to say no.
I didn't think, it was nice that they had the timing down and everything, but the dives are kind of overdone to me.
Maybe that's the formula for me. Yeah, like I just need a ton of dives, and then it'll click for me at some point.
Right?
No, but it's something I have to accept. It might be like some of the stuff on commentary. Like I just have to accept it, and if I focus on it, then I'm gonna just hate the show. So I just have to block it out. Like I have to
It's
pretend.
almost becoming Pavlovian with, Pavlov's dogs. They hear the bell and they know it's dinner time. It's like when you see a successful dive, you're like, oh, they're going to commercial.
Yes, right.
That's their cue.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, you can imagine the ref with his earpiece in the match, and he's telling people, we got to go to commercial. Quick, hit the dive.
Yes.
So they hit the dive. Now, one thing I wanted to mention about near the close of this match, we come back from commercial break, and now everybody kind of gets involved in the match. Rhea pulls Dominic out of the way of a 619. So Zelina Vega gets involved. She climbs up the ring steps onto the apron. She Hurricane Rana's Rhea off the apron onto the floor. Rhea's on the floor, so Zelina Vega's leaping off and Hurricane Rana, Rhea onto the floor. And then Rhea gets up and chases Zelina off, and they both chase through the crowd somewhere. So they're somewhere in the Portland arena. Who knows? And that sort of opened things up a bit. And then eventually we get our pin with the Damian choke slamming Santos for the pin there. As Santos tried for some maneuver, and Damian Priestley basically catches him, and he catches him by the throat, and now it's, oh, there we go. The only guy in the match is not really a luchador. The big man wins the match with a big man move. Catch that smaller wrestler and just pick him up. Big choke slam. So pretty good win there. Zelina gets her move in there. That was neat. And then Rhea runs her off. So everybody kind of got to participate a little bit in the match. I think they were kind of protecting Finn and understandable. But yeah, a fun match.
Yeah, I think so far so good. That was a good segment. You got some promising news. The draft will shake things up, so maybe anything that's kind of a little stale or somebody needs to get moved around, they can move them around, which is a good aspect of it.
Rhea has to be on SmackDown. She's the SmackDown Women's Champ,
which is great.
What if Judgment Day members start getting drafted to Raw?
Yeah,
and maybe that's what they're testing. They're throwing Judgment Day out there just to see creative. They've got to be testing who's over with whom and what are our potential storylines. Is there something we should continue, or is there something that's run its course and we need to break it up? And they're going to have a big question with Judgment Day on this.
Yeah.
Because Judgment Day might have some legs beyond the feud with Edge. Now that seems to have been cleaned up now. Judgment Day versus Edge and Beth Phoenix and whoever else, that's done. They closed that chapter at WrestleMania, but does Judgment Day have legs left? And I guess they're trying to give themselves options, but they got to find out.
Yeah, it's a cool group, honestly, because even though I don't totally understand I mean, it's just stereotypical gimmick. Like we are people in black clothing gimmick. I
They're
don't.
the outcasts.
And but ultimately they have a good, I'd say, diverse squad of people
Yep.
in there. So that's always a good combo when you have four people that are completely different in what they do. So
And that makes them better as outcasts. I remember this old quote from Tom Petty. Um, talking about some of the things like maybe it was about how punk scenes can get stale, or other scenes like that can get stale. He always said, rebels don't dress like each other. The idea that if you're really in a group of outcasts, you shouldn't have uniforms on. You shouldn't all be the same, because now you're not outcasts. You're just a different, trying to make this uniform conformity in group. And so the differences between the bloodline members, I think, is part of what keeps them interesting.
for
And
sure.
they can all talk. Like they're all getting, like, Finn Balor was supposed to be the guy on the mic for the group after a while, but then Dom started getting over with genuine heel heat, and now it looks like Damian Priest can talk as well. He seems comfortable doing it. And now that Rhea's got a belt, they've got to give her some chances on the mic, and she looks like she's growing into it. So, if Judgment Day goes away, it's because all of these wrestlers individually have outgrown it. And that's a good problem to have. Maybe the gimmick goes away, not because the gimmick is stale, but because the people have genuinely outgrown it.
Right.
So that's something to watch for too. Maybe that's a good problem to have.
For sure.
People aren't dropping the ball and becoming terrible and replaceable. They're outgrowing the storyline.
Right. So, Dom, I think that about wraps up the 9 o'clock hour. Good stuff, honestly, so far. So good with the SmackDown. And we had some weak ones going into WrestleMania where we were a little bit like, well, this isn't good. This is filler. But and the Raw had gotten, I didn't watch it. I don't know. But I read online and people were trashing it. I don't know if that means that they're right or wrong. They could be wrong. But people were trashing the Raw. So I don't know. Who knows if it was.
I tend not to have the same opinions as most pop culture people, so I don't know what I would have thought.
We might have loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe people are trashing this SmackDown. I thought it was pretty good.
No, I thought it was good. So a few other things, just going down the line here. So
8 o'clock hour was packed. We got 3 matches in the 8 o'clock hour. Plus they were recapping Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, both from WrestleMania and Raw. And we got the teases of what's happening backstage with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, and Paul Heyman and Jey Uso with Solo Sikoa. So the 8 o'clock hour was packed, and it wasn't squash match packed. They got to fit 3 matches in the 8 o'clock hour. These are going to be squashes. They weren't. They were pretty good. So from the 8 o'clock hour, what stood out to you?
I'll say probably, I'd go ahead and say this might be the match of the night.
Okay.
The main event was kind of one of those weirdo main events where you kind of knew that
it had a run-in.
Yeah, there's going to be a run-in. So, but like just a proper match was the opener.
Okay.
What did you think of the opener? And maybe you can just give a rundown of who was in it, because I didn't catch them all. But
6-man tag, Brawling Brutes versus Imperium. It's like October again.
Yeah. And
which I liked. It was a way to get Gunther back on TV with the belt without having him put up the IC belt immediately after WrestleMania. And it was a chance to get him in there with Sheamus, who just challenged for WrestleMania. And, the announcers were putting over the WrestleMania match as maybe the hardest hitting WrestleMania match they ever had. It was fantastic to watch. And this 6-man tag, pretty good match as well, and a good opener. And it's a 6-man tag with guys who make sense. It wasn't like, hey, let's just throw together a 6-man tag. Like the Brawling Brutes or a mini faction. Imperium is a mini faction. They know each other. They've wrestled before in some combination thereof, or as a 6-man. They have a pretty good match here. Let's see here. Eventually, Sheamus gets the brogue kick on Vinci for the pinfall. So the baby faces get the win coming out of WrestleMania to open SmackDown, but it's not Gunther who's involved in the loss. Pretty good. Pretty good match. Nothing stands really out. Other than like Gunther always looks fantastic. You know, he's power bombing Ridge, then turns that into a Boston Crab. Then he power slams, but then gets a 10 beats of the Bowen eventually from Sheamus. Let's see. I'm not sure who I think it was Vinci. Sheamus blocks a power bomb and turns it into a white noise slam, or was it on? My notes don't tell me who he did it on, but Sheamus had a neat sequence where he's blocking a power bomb and turning it into white noise up on the for a 2 count.
Yeah.
Eventually, he gets the win. So they're trying to keep Sheamus in people's minds and strong. They're trying to keep these factions on TVs because although they're supporting cast, they are fun to watch. All 4 of the guys in the supporting cast, Butch, Ridge Holland, Kaiser, and Vinci, they're all fun.
Butch and Ridge Holland always stick out to me whenever I see them because we don't see a ton of them, and they are kind of buried in in these factions as the other guys. But Butch and Ridge Holland they're both good hands.
Right.
Ridge Holland, he did the Alabama Slam.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. He does some slams that you're just like, damn, these are big time powerhouse moves that
You could see him in a stiff match with Gunther.
Yeah.
If they elevated his character to that, because he is a big powerhouse guy, you could see him having one heck of a stiff throwdown with Gunther.
And Kaiser has impressed too. I haven't really seen him much outside of this last 2 or 3 weeks. So Cody Rhodes, he wrestled last week.
Yep.
And Kaiser and Butch had this really unique spot, and I don't even want to explain it, but it's a move I've never seen before. And it's like, if you're going to whip somebody into the ropes and do something that nobody's ever seen before. And much like the Lucha match, like my notes were like, this felt like they've worked together so much that everything was smooth and it was a good match as a result of the fact that these guys must have wrestled in the Indies or NXT UK or somewhere in the UK together. They have this like style that all matches up where, like when Butch is doing the finger stuff, I could see some people not even really knowing how to take it and, how they're supposed to sell it. It's just a very odd way. It's very odd. Like you don't see that anymore, really. Anybody ripping the fingers back. But all good stuff from them.
There was one sequence. I don't know if this is the one you were thinking of, but it was to go into the commercial break. Butch is up on the top rope, so Kaiser runs over and interferes, and basically to toss Butch off the top rope. And so as Butch comes off, Vinci catches him out of the air. Butch's feet don't hit the canvas. He leaps off. Vinci catches him in a brainbuster. And it's not just like a quick roll to the brainbuster. He catches him and holds him vertically for a couple of beats and then hits the brainbuster. What an impressive physical move there. The timing, the precision of where to land and where to be to hit your spots in the ring, like not spot as move like Spot Fest, but to be in exactly the right place in the ring to execute that.
And brainbuster's nasty.
It is.
It just, every time I see it, I'm like, ooh. Like, there's something about just dropping someone on their head like that. I know that they have the arm there to protect them, but still, like, if you don't know what you're doing, don't do that one.
Yeah. If you don't know, there's a lot of moves. If you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. The brainbuster is near the top of the list there, right?
Yeah.
Vinci is another guy. Strong, Not the biggest guy, but really pound for pound, strong dude. Like these guys can all work. I could see some of them being viable in maybe some programs if they weren't in these factions, but these factions are still working. They're still kind of getting over, so it's good to see them there. But yeah, all of these guys in this match are impressive. It's a fun match as an opener, a lot of action, some stiff work, lots of variety in the match. From Butch doing his small man, just crazy person moves, including pulling the fingers and stuff, to big power moves from guys like Ridge and Sheamus and Gunter.
Yeah. So I guess we can kind of move on here. We had that match. We have some segments here, and I kind of want to just touch on one thing.
Yeah, go for it.
So we didn't have the full bloodline. They do these shows where like two of them aren't there. Roman usually is at least one of them that's not there.
Yep.
So Roman's not there, and then Jimmy Uso wasn't there tonight.
Yep.
Paul Heyman, does he take any days off? He's always there.
Yes.
And
maybe because he doesn't have to bump.
Yes.
So he's just got to get on the plane and go to the next TV taping with everybody else. Paul Heyman probably doesn't have to do house shows, but he probably has to do all TV.
He's all over the bloodline. He never takes any time off, and that's probably what's helped the story so much because he always kind of keeps it all together and flowing. And then I just was noticing that Heyman is always there, and I know Solo Sikoa is there, but there are some times where he's just standing there holding his arms. He's just physically there. He's not really doing anything, but
he's not. Yeah,
Heyman is really quite the workhorse. But yeah, so anything
Solo not talking in this one, but he's kind of staring at Jay at periods. So they're trying to get Solo to do more, but he's not saying anything yet. He's not the guy who's grabbing the mic. But that's okay. Not everybody has to have mic time. And it's like a basketball team. If you can only contribute offensively if you have the ball in your hands, then you're not going to have as good a team with five guys like that as you will with a team of five guys where some of the guys can contribute without having the ball.
A role player, if you will.
Yeah, guys to set picks and rebound and set screens and pass the ball and do a skip pass to the other side of the court. Do something like that. Draw other defenders away. Sneak in for backdoor cuts. Things you can do to contribute without having, without hogging the ball. And it's good that they're giving Solo Sikoa things to do other than stand there. Because for a while, yeah, you're right. Solo was just there. He was like furniture. He's there. But he's not furniture anymore. Now he's there, and it's like, oh, he's here. He's not there anymore. He's here. He's present.
Yes, he's definitely. You feel like a guy that just sort of learning.
Yeah,
and they put him in huge spots. He was in the main event of WrestleMania, and he had a massive spot. So they're putting him in big positions to perform, and he has. And you're just like, let him grow and learn and kind of be around all those guys. And then 3-4 years down the road, you could see him being in the title picture. And that's how
you mentioned that months ago when we did our year-end grades, when you talked about Solo Sikoa being someone who was still very new to WWE and really a young wrestler, and how you could see that potential in him. And it's great that they're giving him this chance in the top storyline in the company and saying, look, you don't have to carry it. You don't even have to be a guy who stands out very much for a while. Just be there, do your part, and as you show that you can handle it, we'll give you a little more to do. And you can see that progress that he's making. And so like you called it months ago. You saw that in him, and apparently he's been fulfilling that. And WWE Creative seems to be seeing the same thing in him. And yeah, it's good to see. That's another one of those bloodline things. They're making progress. The storyline isn't just, okay, let's just recycle what we did last week and the last week and the last week. There are things you can see that's progress. It's change in a good way within the bloodline.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Any So anything that you wanted to talk about here as we're kind of winding down here? We talked about most of the show, but
We got to talk tag team divisions. We got 2 more matches in the 8 o'clock hour, and they each have implications for the tag team division.
yeah,
Um, let's go men's first. It was a singles match: Ricochet versus Ivar from the Viking Raiders.
yeah,
And apparently, the tag team partners were banned from ringside, which is, I guess just to give each of them kind of a night off.
hmm
So no Braun Strowman and no Eric, although Valhalla still has to come out with Ivar.
hmm
And Ricochet and Ivar have, one of these odd couple matches.
yeah,
Ricochet is barely 200 pounds. Ivar's over 300.
hmm
Um, and it's pretty neat because, Ricochet tries to do mat wrestling. So there's Ricochet trying to do like wear down holes on this guy who outweighs him by more than 100 pounds.
yeah,
He's like going for headlocks. And, he's every now and then trying to control the man because that's Ricochet's things. That's what he does. And he's good at it. And I appreciate that somebody actually knows how to wrestle. Somebody who can do the high flying stuff actually knows how to wrestle. So I like it.
yeah,
But Ivar, of course, he's doing a lot of the big stuff. They do a dive and it fails, which makes me happy.
right,
Because Ricochet dives to the outside onto Ivar, but Ivar catches him by the throat and choke slams and then throws him back, throws him into the ringside. Actually, so doesn't choke slam him into the mat. He kind of throws him against the side of the ring and then does that splash into the side of the ring with Ricochet perched up against there. So fun spot there. Power versus the agility, although Ivar is a very agile guy. Um, Eventually, Ricochet wins, hitting his top turnbuckle moonsault, which is pretty cool. And that came after Ricochet Hurricane Ron at Ivar. So Ivar was going to the top for something, and Ricochet caught him. Hurricane Ron is him off the top rope, and then the moonsault for the win. So
yeah.
really cool finish there. I
I
didn't
love
have a
the
lot of
finish.
other notes from it, but a fun match. What did you think?
I thought it was short enough from my perspective. Like it didn't drag on, and they didn't have a lot of time, but they did a lot with the time that they had.
Yeah, right.
And that spot at the end to finish it. I mean, I think I always feel like with Ricochet, there's always a real fun spot at the end to finish it. Ivar can
Whether he's
move.
winning or losing, he's involved in some wildly creative, high impact finishes.
Yes. I feel like Ivar can move. Like
Yes.
he looks like a slob, and he looks like he's going to be a guy that just lumbers around, and he's just going to be. I don't know. I'm thinking about like,
Bray
boy,
Wyatt.
Bray Wyatt. Yeah, he's a slob, and he's slow, and he's just, you know, not too good in there. And then there's another guy. Oh man, who is his name? Oh, Top Dollar. He looks like he might be like a Top Dollar type, where he's just too big and old, and he just doesn't look like an
Mm-hmm.
athlete. But Ivar, although he has that physical slot, like look, he starts moving around. You're like, man, he's pretty quick and agile and big and strong. So I mean, this is I haven't seen Ivar out in a singles match. I was like, this is a pretty good showing for him and a cool finish at the end. So overall, like, shouldn't have been as good as like just a couple minutes, but like I was pretty entertained with it. I
To
think
your
it.
point about body types,
Mhm.
um, guys with it who are maybe on the portly side, but who have a low center of gravity. Eric and Ivar both are in that range. Otis from the Alpha Academy is in that mold. The example I always use from years and years ago, Bam Bam Bigelow is in that mold.
Yeah, Bam
Um,
Bam
Bubba Ray, Bully Ray, sort of in that mold. So guys who are
for
big and
sure.
portly but have the lower center of gravity, they can do it. Guys like Top Dollar, who have they look like a higher center of gravity, they have more trouble with that. Another old timer, One Man Gang. He
Okay.
was like that Top Dollar thing. He was simply there to be big.
hmm
Eric and Ivar are there to do more than simply be big, which is why they're such a viable tag team. And this was not technically a tag team match, but it featured people who were representing tag teams. They're trying to get over the tag team division. which will get really interesting because later on, leading to the main event, Kevin Owens was ambushed by Solo Sikoa. We didn't get to see it, but we saw the aftermath of it. And apparently, KO has a badly injured left leg. So I'm wondering if, eventually they go, Kevin Owens is out for several weeks. Sammy and KO can't defend the belts. Maybe Matt Riddle stands in for Sammy, and because it smells like there's going to be a way for Sammy and KO to drop the belts without looking weak, because the belts for them were just a prop to knock down the bloodline a peg.
Yeah.
It's not like they need the belts. So I wonder if there's going to be some way to get the belts off of Sammy and KO, and then to see what you can do with the rest of your tag division. I think what they've been doing, especially highlighting it at WrestleMania, they're trying to showcase that they have a good men's tag division. And Ricochet and Braun Strowman and the Viking Raiders will be in that mix. They have really good matches. They have good gimmicks. I don't know much about the Viking Raiders on the mic, but that's what Valhalla and the weird vignettes are for, I guess.
I'll tell you what, they must have heard us. Don't bury the lead. And one of the announcers, I don't know which one it was, but they said, this just shows the strength of the tag division. And we're like, oh no, the tag division's really bad.
Yes, when they did that triple threat tag team match for a shot at the Usos late last fall.
It didn't have anybody. It was like,
and Hit Row wound up winning it.
Hit Row won. That's how bad it was. Hit Row went over.
Oh my goodness. And like going, oh wow, this is not good. And like fast forward a few months and they have a pretty good WrestleMania showcase with 4 different teams, neither of whom have the belts.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see like a return to a genuine tag team division.
Yeah, for sure. So this one was a pretty fun one. And
one more match that speaks to, did you want to go that, or do you have another vignette you want to go to?
I do want to mention the vignette before we go into this match.
Go. Match. Yes. There's so many matches on this show. It's hard to remember that they had cheesy pre-recorded crap and backstage interviews too.
Yes. But this one stuck out because it's our boy, L.A. Knight.
Yes.
Who goes on the screen and the crowd goes crazy when he's on the screen.
Yes.
So somehow, after 6 months of just being drugged down into this horrible rivalry with Bray Wyatt, who's nowhere to be found. I don't know if he's in the unemployment line right now, but they were giving him a giant push, and they just pulled the plug on that. But LA Knight has somehow lived this nightmare of a rivalry with Bray Wyatt, and he goes into the back, and he's with Xavier Woods, and they go back and forth, and they're chirping, and Xavier Woods is playing the video game, and he takes the controller out of his hand and he snaps it. I laughed out loud when he took the controller out of his hand and just crushed it and then threw it out.
Yes.
And then he went, yeah, after that, just because like that's his gimmick. Yeah. Yeah. So pulls the controller, snaps it, yeah, and then that was it. And then it cut off. I was like, okay, perfect.
It's leading to a match apparently at next week's SmackDown. It's going to be Xavier Woods and LA Knight again. The rematch. The rematch you didn't know you needed. Yeah. From the original match that got thrown together after Kofi Kingston got injured.
Yes, I know. It just feels like maybe LA, I mean, it would be silly of them at this point to not give LA Knight a push as he's getting all this heat, even though he's losing, and like people are really into him. So I don't know. Whatever they have to do to just kind of get him some wins and solidify him. Because
he did beat Rey Mysterio right before Rey went into the Hall of Fame.
That is true. Yeah, he went over Rey before the WrestleMania match, which is
thanks to some interference. Yeah, but hey, yeah, there's a good one. Yeah, it's good to see Xavier Woods. I mean, he probably got overshadowed by being in New Day with Big E and Kofi, but Xavier Woods is a pretty interesting guy. I don't remember where he is, but I feel like I've seen him before years and years ago. Guy can work pretty well. He he does more than just play the trombone.
Well, you must
You
have
know,
seen him in
he's
TNA,
more than a
right?
one note tune. What was that? I'm sorry.
You must have seen him in TNA, right?
I've heard he was there. I can't quite place him just because obviously he looked nothing like New Day when he was there. But I've heard people say that yeah, he's a longtime TNA guy, and okay, he
Yeah.
looks like he can work. He looks like he has a personality. The video game thing that they keep going back to is because apparently he has a video game thing going on, maybe on YouTube,
On YouTube.
where and so he's like almost the perfect guy to push the WWE video games. You know, so he's a guy who's valuable to the company even when he's not wrestling. You know, he can do other things. So it's good to see him maybe getting a little spotlight now that you know
Mhm.
everybody else in New Day is recovering from injuries. So good for Xavier Woods. Good for them having something to have LA Knight do.
Yeah.
You know, it's better for them to have this for LA Knight to do than to put him in the Madcap Moss role, where he's just the other guy playing the video game with Xavier Woods, who just has to sit there awkwardly while the real stuff happens.
Right.
So you know, good for LA Knight. We like Madcap too. At least I do. I mean, he's got some potential. Everybody on the main roster, save for a few people who we've talked about, has potential if they're used. So I mean, good for them trying to find something with LA Knight. Anytime he gets on the mic and gets in the ring, I'm ready to watch.
I wonder if you know, they just have these guys in catering and they just show up and they're like, yeah, there's a video game spot, so just go sit there and play the video game in the background. You're like, okay,
Right?
go play the role of extra tonight.
Yep. Like
Um,
Madcap Moss shows up with all his gear. You're like, yeah, don't worry about that. You're playing a video game tonight.
right?
Yeah.
But sure, you got to start somewhere, and you got to do what you got to do. But
Yep.
we have
How about the women's tag team division? We think the men's tag team division looks strong. The women's tag team division looks a little weird, and I have some questions about this. It's Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan versus Natalia and Shotzi. Um, Liv and Raquel win this one. Um, Big closing sequence where Natalia and Shotzi are setting up a double team move on Liv, but Raquel breaks it up and throws Natalia out of the ring, and then assists Liv in hitting a pretty cool tornado DDT, where Raquel sort of gives her a boost up in the air, and Liv hits the tornado DDT on Shotzi into the Oblivion, which is off of the ropes, and Liv gets the pin there. Liv and Raquel are getting a Ricochet Braun Strowman vibe for me. Like they work well together, even though they look like they shouldn't. You know,
right.
small person, big person. They work well together. They're developing some chemistry. That would be very good for the tag division. But here's what's kind of weird. They've already announced that Becky Lynch and Lita, the current WWE Tag Team Women's Champions, will defend their titles in their first post WrestleMania title defense against Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan. So help me out, John. They had this women's tag team showcase at WrestleMania. The losers of that match, one of the three losers of that match, get a title shot. The winners of that match, nowhere to be seen. What was the point of that match if it wasn't to build up your tag team division? What was the point of having that particular team go over in that match if you had plans to push someone else in your tag team division? And does a women's tag team division exist? We said in our WrestleMania recap, no. If that's what you're going to show us at WrestleMania, no. There's no women's tag team division whatsoever to speak of. It doesn't exist. Could it exist if we see more of what we saw at this SmackDown?
Yeah, we're really lost here, aren't we? This division screwed up.
That was a big convoluted question there. So just like If you can untangle what I just said, please do.
Yeah. Let me
People
try.
watching in the comments, if you know what I was just talking about, please let me know so I can rewatch this and figure it out. But I'm interrupting. Go ahead, John.
Um, as far as the women's match or the women's tag concerned, it's really a mess, and they're just kind of randomly wrestling. So I almost feel like they need some sort of tournament to make you understand who's good and who's on whose side, and that would at least chew up some time, and you would get an idea of who is on the tag. So I don't even know how Lita and Becky Lynch are together, but I don't watch Raw, so I have no idea why they're together, how they're throwing the teams together. Like, are they matching the gears up? Like, are they switching into certain colors where they're like truly becoming a tag team? Or are they just throwing singles together and just sort of seeing what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
You think you could have done a lot. Either you would have just cut that tag match from WrestleMania altogether because it didn't do anybody any favors,
Yeah.
or you just actually had that for the title and then they win it at WrestleMania and then that would be it. But I guess they're really just trying to get the nostalgia pop with Lita and Becky Lynch. But yeah, we'll have to see.
And maybe the WrestleMania match was just to get Ronda Rousey on TV because it is the biggest celebrity pay-per-view and Ronda is still a big name. So, but yeah, well, what a weird sequence. Within a week's time, they put Ronda Rousey on TV at WrestleMania just to get her on TV. She wins with an armbar and her only entry into the ring, gets insane go-home heat. And then 6 days later on SmackDown, the team that got submitted and another team that was just sprawled out on the floor during the match and not involved in the finish are wrestling basically for who's going to get a title shot the next week versus Becky Lynch and Lita. So, yeah, maybe it was just to get Ronda on at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I don't know why Ronda got a push that she didn't need, or ultimately, if you think that they are going to be the next tag champs, then let's see them on TV on one of the shows. Wrestling.
Right? They got to do something.
Ronda probably.
They'd be a good heel team if Ronda were better in the ring because Shayna can go.
Ronda has other obligations. She probably has a pretty sweet contract with WWE where she's like, yeah, she's got probably doing like the Lesnar thing, but she's just not good. So
yeah,
she really has to get better at her craft. So she should be there getting better at her craft, but that does not seem to be at the top of her list of things to do. But that's another story about Ronda Rousey sucking. But anyway.
Yeah, so men's tag team division looks like it's making good progress. Women's tag team division, we're still questioning if it exists, but maybe Liv and Raquel developing some chemistry is a good sign.
Yep. Well, Dom, that's all I really had here for the show. Maybe we're going to mosey on into the Italian goodbye here, but anything else you wanted to add about, coming out of WrestleMania to SmackDown, what you thought overall?
Sure, and it's out of the ring, though, and out of the show is what a huge announcement that we covered a little bit in our WrestleMania recap of the WWE merging with Endeavor, which is UFC's parent company. And they big news splash on Monday. Triple H kind of hints at it and alludes to it on Monday Night Raw. But a few days later, it's like, business as usual, no pun intended. For such a big story, they're really trying to push that the in-ring product, on-screen product, house show pay-per-view product that fans enjoy should continue the way it is. So they're trying to leave the corporate stuff for the corporate news and leave the wrestling stuff in the wrestling ring. And I think that's a good sign. The WWE in-ring product is not really a problem that needs to be solved. It's not a boo-boo that needs a Band-Aid. It's not a broken something that needs to be fixed. So whatever's happening corporate-wise, I think it's best if they can cast that aside and not let it infect what's happening on screen. It's not like WWE got bought out on the cheap because the product is failing. And so, yeah, somebody new has to come in and really just clean house and change things. I think it's good to let the corporate side be the corporate side and continue the mostly good that's been happening with the on-screen television and house show and merchandising and video game and everything else product.
It'll be interesting to see what comes out of it. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I mean, it probably is a bad thing if you work for either company because there's probably, you know, these roles that they'll probably look to merge.
Sure, redundant bureaucracy, that's
I
expected.
mean, that's probably if you work in the office there, you're probably not too happy. But I mean, I'm sure if you work in the WWE office, it doesn't seem that great, especially based on the allegations with what Vince is doing. You know, not only do you have to deal with the fact that, you know, you're in a corporate environment and you're working at the office, but you have Vince who is a maniac. So who and all kinds of stuff on those levels. So it just doesn't seem like the best environment to work in.
It
So
might be a relief to get a severance package from a company valued at more than $21 billion.
yeah, hey, maybe they get a sweet. So, and it's
There
a
are worse
company,
things that could happen.
it's a company that fires people left and right, so they're probably pretty good at it at this point. They probably know how to give the proper severance package and be like, yeah. People usually, you know, get released a lot from the WWE. So, from my perspective, it's a better option than the Saudi sale. The Saudi thing would have been a nightmare. I mean, probably would have been. We would just start watching AEW. I mean, Tony Khan would have loved it,
right?
Because he would have just taken over. But ultimately, it'll be interesting to see what they do with it, or if it's just going to be business as usual. You just hope Vince doesn't meddle around too much in the creative stuff because we've seen. I mean, that's literally why AEW was created and has had successes because people were so WWE was so bad at one point.
It's getting stale, no competition. That's what happens.
Yeah, and now there's competitions where they have to actually wake up a little bit. I mean, even now we're doing the real Italian goodbye. They had made Jinder Mahal the WWE champion. And Jinder Mahal was the WWE champion because they're trying to expand into India. So they wanted somebody that would be of Indian heritage be the WWE champion. He's from Canada, by the way.
Sure.
So he's not Indian. So, but they're like, he kind of looks like he's Indian. So they were really making a push to expand into India and get a presence there. But when you do that, you alienate all of your localized fans. And it's not that an Indian person shouldn't be the champion. It's that Jinder Mahal shouldn't be the champion.
Shouldn't be the champion, right?
No, it's ridiculous. So
it's like a Canadian who's they're trying to pass off as native Indian should not be.
No. Champion. So not only are they probably unsuccessful.
Who's a mid-carder?
Who's at best mid-carder.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess what I'm drilling at is they would just totally ignore the fan. And then just in favor of like, okay, they can't watch anything else. They're just going to watch this, but we still need to expand. So now they have to bring the troops back in a little bit here and be like, yeah, we have to protect our industry in the U.S. and North America because AEW's here and they could really just start to run the show. But
and then we get a historically long Roman Reigns title run where, you know, they're doing run-ins all the time to help him and interference to help him keep the belt, you know.
Right.
So he's a better champion, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they're back to having a real champion that looks like he could be the champion of a wrestling promotion. Yeah, a major wrestling promotion. So, yeah.
For sure.
On the sales side, Endeavor buying in a merger and acquisition. I will pose it as a question to you, and then I can give my take on it. Better or worse than either NBC buying it or Fox's parent company buying it or USA or another big media conglomerate like Disney, ABC? What do you think?
Um,
Or Netflix, someone like that was rumored to buy it. Netflix, Apple.
you know, it's interesting. Those other companies that you mentioned, this probably Endeavor feels like the best fit because they already do UFC, and they're so closely. I mean, if you even watch some of the UFC stuff, they do like arguments at press conferences that are staged as hell. But then the people that watch UFC typically watch WWE, and then like they had the same target market, so that makes a lot more sense. Whereas if it went to Comcast or if it went to Apple, it would just go to everybody. So who knows what they would do? They might try to make it more like TV show, or I don't know. But you do have the potential, at least with Endeavor, because they have the UFC. Maybe they'll make it a little bit more adult driven rather than children driven. If we went to Disney, then you're going to have all the New Day, John Cena stuff, right? And it'll be directly to the kids, and you'd be like, oh man. But it's all speculation. I think any of the companies that were going to buy it, we're going to buy it. But the fact that Vince didn't sell it outright, and he's the chairman of the company, he just has one more person to answer to that's not a stockholder, but he probably still runs the show.
Okay. That was a great answer, and one I wasn't thinking along the lines of. You went in-ring product. I was thinking by way of the corporate side, maybe affecting in-ring product, but mostly corporate side. So WWE was not acquired or bought out by one of its media partners or a potential media partner, which means that there will still be competition for WWE licensing its TV shows. I mean, if Comcast, NBC, Peacock, whatever, bought it, would they have SmackDown on Fox, a competitor? Would they have Raw on USA, a competitor? What about the streaming rights and everything? So I think it's really the best of all worlds. You brought up from the angle of maybe being able to put the TV product and enhance the TV product that we see as viewers, as customers, as audience members. But I also think it was a good deal as far as behind the scenes, because this keeps WWE on. There's no home team now with WWE broadcasting.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
might
it's
be
it's
better
it's
from a
not like, oh,
competitive.
you're not going to see Raw on. I'm sorry, but you're not going to see Raw on USA anymore because now Disney owns the rights and they want it on ABC or one of their cable shows. Or you're not going to see, or now you're going to see more. You got to have an Amazon Prime subscription to watch WWE content or some of it. Things like that. Like they were bought out by a company who puts on the events, and there's still just like it's great when there's competition for wrestling for the in-ring product, AEW being around. I think it's going to be cool that WWE has managed, like Vince has managed to get premium value for his company, stay in the loop corporate wise, and maybe even on the creative side, and he's still getting to have bidding wars for his television products.
Oh, from a business perspective for Vince, this is amazing. That
This
he
has
got
got to be a home run.
this to get so much money for this company. That's so difficult to run. This is
Yes.
not YouTube streaming stuff. It's everything. They have to physically bring the ring in. They have to build it. They have to have this huge staff. They have these pro wrestlers who are huge personalities that they're huge pain in the ass. These people to deal with, that they have to put out there and I mean, all the things that go into it. I can't believe that they were able to sell it to somebody because it's so difficult to kind of take over. But then in addition to that, you look at what he was able to get and then the amount of power he was able to maintain. And the only real losers is probably the rest of the McMahon family and people that were kind of in line to take the company over. That is not happening. Like
No, yeah,
Stephanie's not the CEO. She's at home. She's collecting. I mean, she's getting a lot of money, but she's not getting a lot of the power that she's kind of worked
yeah.
toward getting. she's just kind of at home watching the kids right now. So
Yeah, everybody else is one peg down on the ladder, at least in the corporate hierarchy. Stephanie's sitting at home. She's not taking over. Shane nursing his quad or whatever it is that he hurt at WrestleMania, doing that leapfrog over the Miz.
and
Yeah, maybe he's back with the company, but it's not to take over.
you have to remember this too. They voted him off, Vince. They
Yeah.
the board was like, yeah, you're out. Like he was basically relieved of his duties by the company, and then he just swooped back in, found a way to like get it under his power again, and then sold it, and then put himself at the top. So really shady stuff that he was doing kind of to get to the top. But
I've said it before, but his life looks like a work.
right.
Like his real professional life. I don't know about his personal life too much, but his real professional life, it's a work and a shoot. It looks like a work. It's all a work.
Right. But he's got kudos to whoever his lawyer is and the people that he gets behind him. But I mean,
NASCAR is fake. Vinnie Mac is real.
He's very real. And he's a nut job. So interesting to see what he's been able to do. Well, Dom, I'll tell you what, we're kind of moseying on into the hour and 15-minute mark, and we've
been a good talk.
Been doing the Italian goodbye. Hey, man, appreciate you jumping on here as always.
Yes, sir. Same here.
SmackDown was good because there is a little concern that we're going to have a lull after WrestleMania, but they really brought it. So hopefully that just leads to some more positive SmackDowns. And if you guys are watching, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We've been getting a little bit more views as a result of WrestleMania. We're doing shorter clips, kind of ditching the shorts on YouTube because the algorithm is just not liking us right now. So we're going to hold off on the shorts, but we're going to be doing these little short clips here, and we'll keep up with the live program. So thank you so much for joining, and have a nice rest of your day.